This week, I'm brewing a Hazy Red IPA using a single malt and a single hop. Honestly, this isn't the perfect example beer, but it's in the ballpark. A good red IPA is malt forward but balanced with a huge amount of hop aroma and flavor. They're slightly sweet, a little toasty, and often contain caramel malt flavors and classic American hops. As I was researching the style, I came across a malt that seems to be common in today's red-tinted beers. Red X from Best Malts is said to have similar properties to Munich and crystal malts, and it can be used at rates as high as 100% of the grain bill. Because I've never used it before, that's exactly what we're gonna do. And while I'm at it, I might as well use a single hop as well to make a single malt and single hop or smash beer. For that, I'm going with Simcoe, and I'll be using both pellet and whole cone hops. Now, let's make some beer. For this beer, I'm using some local spring water, and I'm adjusting the water profile using gypsum, calcium chloride, baking soda, and canning salt. While this step isn't necessarily required to make good beer, it definitely helps, especially if you want to make something great. This time, I'm targeting a balance between malt and hops, so I'm using Balance Profile 2 on the Brewer's Friend water calculator. With this recipe, I'm shooting for just over 6% ABV, and I'm using 8.5 pounds of Red X in this 3-gallon batch to get there. I'll mash in at 140 Fahrenheit or 60 degrees Celsius, then I'll start raising the temperature to my target mash temp of 152 degrees Fahrenheit or 67 degrees Celsius. Let's get it going. I'll keep mashing this in until everything is nice and saturated. Then, I'll slowly heat the mash to 152. Once we're up to temp, I'll start a 45-minute timer. Alright, we're about halfway through the mash, and I'd like to start recirculating the wort to hopefully improve my efficiency and clear it up a bit. While the mash finishes up, let's head inside and check on that Brett Pale Ale we made last month. This pale ale was made with 100% Brettanomyces, and it had a pretty intense fermentation. It started out at 76 degrees Fahrenheit or about 24 degrees Celsius, and after a week, I brought it down to room temperature. After almost exactly a month of fermentation, it's time to get this thing into a keg. This time, I'm going to try a new transferring technique that will hopefully limit oxygen exposure. I filled the keg with sanitizer and pushed it out with CO2 at about 2 or 3 psi. My plan is to create a loop where beer flows from the fermenter into the keg, which pushes CO2 into the fermenter. That way, I don't waste the CO2 that I've already put into the keg. Unfortunately, I just couldn't figure it out this time. As soon as I connected the liquid post, it seemed like the pressure equalized, pushing CO2 through the beer and into the fermenter. It may have been filling very, very slowly, but that's alright. Instead, I ended up pushing new CO2 into the fermenter and used a blow-off tube on the keg to release the existing CO2. I'm gonna wrap this thing up and I'll meet you back in the garage. Alright, I've been recirculating for about 30 minutes now. Time to yank these grains and get our boil started. With the basket up and out of the way, I'm rinsing the grains with about a gallon of sparge water. Now, let's crank this thing to full power. Okay, we're up to a boil and it's time for our first hop addition. Here's 14 grams of Simcoe and our timer starts now. While we wait for the next hop addition, I have an idea to upgrade my Anvil bucket fermenter and improve my dry hopping technique. I found this weldless tri-clamp bulkhead and I couldn't ask for a better fit. I thought I'd have to widen the hole a bit, but it's absolutely perfect. From there, I'm attaching a butterfly valve and a ball lock gas post. This will be my fermentation setup with a blow-off tube valve connected to the gas post. Then, when it's time to dry hop, I plan on closing the valve and connecting my sight glass. And that's where I'll add my dry hops before purging with CO2. Might be a little overkill, but man, I'm stoked. Okay, we've got 15 minutes left in the boil and it's time for another hop addition. Here's 14 grams of Simcoe. It's also time to start recirculating the wort and sanitizing the plate chiller. With 5 minutes left in the boil, it's time for another hop addition. Here's 1 ounce of Simcoe. And for the last hop addition, I'm test driving the Blickman Hop Rocket to hopefully add some nice hop aroma to this beer. This thing can be used in line during brewing, and I'm also super stoked to try it out on my kegerator during serving. After adding 2 ounces of whole cone Simcoe to the hop back, it's time to chill. Let me wrap this up and we'll get ready for fermentation. Man, it's been a super hectic brew day, but I've learned a ton. The only thing left to do is pitch the yeast. For this beer, I'm going with a 500 milliliter starter of WLP 008, and I'll be fermenting at room temperature. I'm super stoked to see how this new lid setup works out. If you want to see me dry hop this thing, head over to the Hops and Gnarly Instagram page. And while you're there, don't forget to follow. If you like this video, let me know in the comments and consider subscribing so you don't miss the next one. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I'll see you again soon.